Hello, Tanya, and welcome to Roadmap to Recognition. I'm very pleased to have you with us today, all the way from Paris. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us your experience.
Hi, Seth. Thanks so much for inviting me. It is very important to me. And no problem. I'm very happy to share my experience with you and with others.
Brilliant. I came across your blog a few months ago when I was researching information available online on the ARB prescribed exam. And I have to say, from what I've seen, and I could be wrong, there's virtually nothing about the exam online except for the official guidance from the ARB, which is one of the reasons I started this initiative. However, in your blog, there are a few articles that you have written about the whole process and even about failing your first attempt, which I thought was a very relatable experience. Tell us about your blog and your website and why you started both.
Well, the website is about architectural photography because it is something I do as my professional practice. And the blog, well, I started the blog because it was a way to share my experience to other students. Because, yeah, as you said, there's no lot of information out there, and it was quite challenging for me to realize or to understand how the examination works or what to submit. So, yeah, that's why I decided to share my experience so other people can benefit, from my experience, from what I already went through.
Yeah.
And that's the main point of that blog.
Oh, that's beautiful. And you do it so well
Thanks.
in the articles.
Thanks so much.
And I think, yes, it's very important to share all aspects of the journey and not just, a curated final result that you see on LinkedIn. It just makes the process look so deceivingly easy. And
Exactly.
yeah, and I want to talk about that more in detail later on. But for now, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do at the minute in Paris?
Yes, I'm working in a Parisian practice. It's located in the western suburbs, and we do a lot of residential. We do some, not that many, but some public buildings,
Mhm.
and we are more focused in residential projects. I think that's what we do here.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And aside, I have my architectural photography company, and I do some photography for other architects. Generally, there are like big practices,
Uh-huh.
and they hire me to, well, they get my services to show more their materials they use for
Yeah.
construction. Not only the design,
Uh-huh.
but also the materials and
Oh,
details and the kind of things.
it's really beautiful photography that you have on your website,
Thanks so much.
and also 3D images that look extremely realistic and really, really beautiful. Is that part of your business as well?
Thanks so much. Yes, it is, but at the moment I'm not doing that much, because I'm very focused. At the moment, I'm focused on the practice, in the professional practice, and the photography I'm doing aside. So now I find, I struggle a little bit in terms of time to do the three things at the same time. So I decided to stick in, like with photography and the professional practice.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't do that anymore at the moment.
Yeah, but
It is past.
it's a beautiful skill to have as an
Oh,
architect
thanks so
as well, to
much.
be able to produce the quality images. So yeah, good on you. Um, so uh, let's go back a little bit to the start and tell us about where you studied and how was the structure of your course.
Yes, I did my studies in Mexico, and well, the structure of the course was quite different, compared to the UK. In Mexico, every school is independent. They are not driven by those criteria you already know by heart. It doesn't exist in Mexico as such. So we usually have a very traditional education in terms of architecture. Usually we start designing. Well, when I did my studies, we started designing by hand, which I consider it's a great skill to develop.
Yeah.
And then we passed, on technology, and we studied a lot of history. we do study a lot of structural and that kind of things because we have earthquakes in Mexico. That's something we don't do here in Europe, at least not in the places I have lived. And that's the main difference between a Mexican program and at least a British program. That's what I see, like the
Yeah.
difference.
Oh, it's very interesting because I've interviewed a couple of people, and from my experience as well, it's the start of architecture school. You always start with hand drawing, which is really, I think it was really interesting that it's a common point between schools, but it's such a great skill to have as well, to be able to draw things by hand as you are explaining your ideas and your project. So yeah, no, that's great. um so then how did you end up in Ireland?
Well, I went to Ireland to continue my photography studies,
Hmm.
and I ended up working there. I found a job quite fast. I mean, I just moved. I moved. I think it was on March, and in what April I already had the job, and I couldn't stop. I mean, I really liked the country. I liked the practice where I was working at, and I really fell in love with the culture there. So that's why I decided to stay quite
Yeah,
a long time.
and I guess, I mean, there are so many cultural differences, I presume, between Mexico and Ireland. I certainly found lots of differences. How was the process of adjusting to that new environment? How was that experience for you?
It was quite easy, to be honest. Ireland is a very open place.
Mm.
People are very nice. They are very welcoming, and within the practice was the same thing. My boss at the time was amazing. My colleagues, they supported me a lot, especially at the beginning because I was quite struggling with with all the professional practice differences, regulations, and the kind of things are quite different compared to my country. They gave me a lot of support. So it was, to be honest, I feel fortunate because I think they gave me everything I needed to keep working, and it was good. It was easy, I can say.
Oh, that's brilliant. I mean, I guess like when you're starting somewhere else completely different, I mean, there are huge differences in office culture, in the dynamics between colleagues, and then regulations and procedures and education system. And then on top of that, you need to, maintain your job and be successful at it. And if you're trying to prepare for an exam with little information available, it's a lot to take on. So yeah, it's nice to have that support from colleagues. Yeah.
Yes, yes, it is. And also it's quite funny because I had the experience in Paris and it was quite different. It was the opposite. It was quite challenging. I mean, compared to Ireland, here was like here it was a big deal.
I don't,
It took me a
Paris
long time to adjust here.
Paris has a reputation of being quite rough on
Yeah.
people coming from abroad. Yeah, it's a bit cutthroat, like from
Yeah.
experiences that people have described. Yeah, so then, in Ireland, you decided to take the ARB prescribed exam. So tell us why you decided to do that in the first place.
Yes, it was because while working in Ireland, I wanted to sit the Part 3 examination. And while trying to do this, I found out that I couldn't do it because I was missing some credits. And that's how I ended up in the UK, because in the UK it was way easier to sit this examination and then to continue my students to fill, those credits that were missing. And that's how I ended up with the URB. And to be honest, it was great. I found this process very, I don't know, I learned a lot.
Mm, mm.
So
So, in Mexico, you qualified as an architect, is that right? You completed the
yes.
whole course and you qualified as an architect. And then when you came here to the UK, I presume that it wasn't automatically, you weren't recognized as an architect automatically. And so you needed some more credits to be able to sit the Part 3 exam, is that right? That's what you're saying.
Yes, yes, it is. And especially because in Mexico, the part three doesn't exist.
Mm,
So that's why we don't have that mutual recognition. We have to
yeah.
study a little bit more to be able
Yeah.
to get there.
It's a similar thing in Morocco where you basically you study for 6 years. And the most difficult part is actually getting into architecture school because there's a
Mhm.
very stringent selection right at the start. But once you get in and you get into the National School of Architecture and you study for your 6 years and you're successful, then you're automatically recognized as an architect. So similar to Mexico, I guess we didn't have to sit an examination at the end.
Well, in Mexico, you have to go through. It depends on the school, to be honest.
Mm,
But usually, you have to sit an examination. It's called Ceneval, and
mm,
if you don't do this, you can also have other routes to get your registration number.
mm.
It is not as hard as in the UK, to be honest. I mean, there's nothing to be compared. But yeah, you still have to do something else after finishing your studies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So tell us about your first attempt and why do you think that you weren't successful the first time around?
Well, the first time around, I think I didn't. How can I say this? I think I didn't realize it was going to be that complicated. I thought it was easy. I thought I. I thought I really did a good job. I mean, in at the time, I was so positive and so self confident that I was going to pass examination that I when I failed, I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. So I think my problem was that I didn't research on this examination in a proper way. I didn't ask too many people how this works, and as we already talked, about the lack of information on the internet about this. So I think that was the main thing. I didn't research properly.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a harsh experience. I don't know. I think I told you before, but I also wasn't successful in my first attempt, and I was devastated the first time. I mean, you tend to think in the moment that the failure is a direct reflection of your competence or even like your self-worth. But that's absolutely not true. The jury, who has only 1 hour to assess your work, doesn't know you at all, and they're only judging what you have presented to them, which was your interpretation of the guidance that was available to you at the time. So I think it's important for people to make that distinction between your competence and your education, your value, and the material you presented. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, it is true. It is true. And also, something important is like we need to be open to
Mm,
failure. And
mm.
that's something nobody prepares you for. That's quite, it's harsh. And you need to be open that everything can happen. Like you're not, you are special, of course, but I mean, you're a human and you can make mistakes and
Oh,
it
absolutely.
happens.
And it's yeah, and it's in this curated world of social media where it seems like everybody is cruising through life and doing extremely well and that you're only person struggling. So I definitely think it's very important to talk about failure, and you do that in your blog, and it's absolutely, yeah, beautiful.
Thanks so much.
And so, right, so you weren't successful the first time around, and so I think the one striking thing about your journey, Tanya, is that you never hesitate to reach out for help. I've been reading your blog, and every time you are stuck, you do your research and you just reach out to people who can help you. So tell us what you did next.
What I did next after failure, you mean?
Yes.
Well, I started to look for Mexican people working in the UK as fully registered architects, and I was surprised because I found many of them, many, and I didn't realize. I mean, when you are going through this, At least in my case, I thought it was like, oh, there's just me and there are not many people doing the same thing. And no, I was so wrong. And I met, I think there were 3 Mexican people who decided to share their experiences with me.
Yeah.
And especially one of them, he was a Mexican guy working in a huge practice in London. And I was surprised because he was so open. He gave me a lot of advice, and I think that was the most valuable, the most valuable information I got. And he explained me how he set up his portfolio, how was his interview, and yeah, he gave me a lot of and a lot of encouragement as well. Like, don't worry, you're gonna get it, and like that kind of things are important.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh, wow. So, when you talked to him, did you realize how much information was missing from your material, and was there a lot?
Absolutely, yes. Especially when he started to talk about emails and and things like that. Like, what? So it's supposed to share emails? How? So I never realized that was part of the professional practice as well.
Mhm.
So yes, of course, talking to other people helps a lot.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's the range of ways that you can actually meet the criteria is so big, that it's really important to talk to people and have their side, to have them share their experience like you are doing now. I think it's very valuable for people. Um, so how long did it take you to produce all the material that you needed to produce?
I think the first try was 8 months, and the second 9 months to complete what I already did, the first
Mhm.
one.
A
So
long period of
pretty
time.
much 2 years.
Yeah. And also, I think when you're working a full-time job, it's very difficult to actually sit down during the weekend. You're already exhausted after a week of work. And in the weekend, you have to sit down and put your head again in it and
Yeah,
produce
it's a
all that
lot of
material.
work.
Yeah,
It's a lot of it is exhausting.
it's a big commitment. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'd like to start exploring the material that you so kindly offered to share with us. Let's start with your essay, the essay that you produced, and tell us more about that.
Yes, this essay talks about the difference between the regulations in UK and in Ireland. The Irish regulations are based on the British ones, but there are still some things, like that are quite different, and you have to be aware of, and especially if you study in the UK while living in Ireland. So that's why I decided to produce this, and also it was suggested by my tutor. Okay, so this is the essay. As I mentioned, it is about the difference between the UK and Ireland. Uh, at the beginning, well, I put the name of the tutor because it was suggested by him, and the type of work, the criteria that I covered, and basically I talk about the law
Mm,
in general, how it works, because it is different as well. We don't have this, like the queen things and the crown, and we don't have that.
mm,
And surprisingly, in the UK, it is part of the law.
yeah.
So you can find difference, and it's quite interesting. I talk about the building regulations because despite being quite similar, they have different names, and
Right.
they have different names. Yeah. So I talk about how it works in Ireland,
Mhm.
and then I compare everything uh, with England and Wales. And I talk about the approved documents, which
Yeah.
are the ones that we use in the UK.
Mhm,
And then I talk about the building control,
mhm,
how the plan application works in each country.
mm.
And also, I talk about contracts. In Ireland, we have, at least when I used to work there, I don't know if something has changed, but we used to have colored contracts. I'm not sure, but I think in the UK it used to be like that a long time ago, but now it's different.
Right.
And well, I show here like the main type of contracts, because there are thousands, but those are like
Yeah.
the main ones.
Yeah.
And uh, also different type of the contracts, because some of them are used in small buildings and others in, you know, larger projects. And I talk about planning as well, because the procedure is quite different compared, you know, to the UK. And the architectural practice in general,
Mm-hmm.
and how it works for architects coming from abroad,
Mm-hmm.
how it works during a practice, you know, the standards of professional conduct, and the practice in general, behave, and, you know, all the kind of things. The CPDs as well.
Yes.
We have CPDs in Ireland as well. How the cost is managed.
Mm-hmm.
And well, at the time, BIM in Ireland wasn't a big thing, but now it is. So I talked about how BIM was working in both countries, Ireland and UK, and roughly overview.
Mm-hmm.
And then I included a support letter and some CPD certificates, basically. So that was the essay.
Ah, I think that's brilliant. It's really, really good. It looks like a really nice summary of all the things that you learned during your part three program. And I think the good thing about this is that for me, I thought that at the beginning that you couldn't possibly present material that you hadn't produced in school. For some reason, I thought that the jury wanted to make sure that I studied, that what I studied corresponded to the criteria. But from what I understand now, that is not necessarily true. The jury want to know that you understand now the criteria based on education, experience, personal reading. So if you feel that you are lacking in an area, it is absolutely acceptable to produce something from scratch, as you have done, explaining your understanding right now. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. In fact, at the beginning, when I tried in the first attempt, I didn't put much. Well, I didn't put much of my school projects, and they asked for it. But they also, in my second attempt, they were clear when they were saying that I could produce new material, especially because our regulations are very different compared to Mexico. So yeah, of course, you can produce your own things, you know, to complete your support material and cover more criteria.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's really good. I think it will be very useful for people to see that, in practice how it's done. So the other content that you're sharing with us today is your thesis, and that is quite a chunk of work. Would you like to share your screen and
Of
walk us through
course,
it? Thank
of
you.
course, of course. Well, so this is my thesis. This is just one part of the support material, and I consider this to be the most important because it was covering a lot of criteria. I started this support material with an intro. This part of the support material with the introduction of the thesis, explaining like everything, you know, everything I was covering and everything I did. And then I included, it's like a content, I will say, but I call it design journey. So I was explaining there everything I worked on, you know, like the concept, the research, and etc. All the process of the design.
Mhm.
And also I put this note here, re, uh, referring my actually thesis that I brought with me the day of the examination in case they wanted to know more. Well, I explained the concept, and if you see, I'm explaining or indicating, I would say, indicating the criteria I'm covering in every page.
Mm.
I explained the concept. I put some, I included some of the theory research I did.
Mm.
Same thing, everything is indicated there. The historical research. So basically, this is an essay that I did based on a book, and you know, a lot of images and a lot of tests as well. But it was important to show
Mhm. Mhm.
it is important to know that we have to, I mean, don't hesitate in showing things, even if it's, like an image that it's not yours, but don't hesitate. It is important. It can cover criteria and
Yeah.
complete your work. I talk about sustainability as well. So I included everything I researched at the time.
Yeah, there are lots of criteria about sustainability that you need to cover in the matrix. So yeah.
Yeah, so it is important to indicate it and to include it. The context analysis with the pictures, the weather,
Hmm.
the traffic, the economic, social, and cultural context is very important as well.
Absolutely, yes.
So this is very important because in this part I explain the difference between the legislation in Mexico and the UK. So what I did here is to explain how this project will be in the UK in terms of regulations. So I basically explain in a general view, of course. But this was very. I remember when I started examination, the interview, they really liked this. So this is something
So
you definitely should do.
it's the equivalent of the regulation to the it's the equivalent of the Mexican regulation in the UK. Is that right?
Exactly.
And you did that
Yeah.
by covering the approved documents. I think that's really, really important. I think it's really a good idea, especially for people who don't necessarily have a lot of experience in the UK, to show that.
Yes.
Oh, that's really good.
Yes, it is important, especially if someone never worked in the UK. At least you can say, okay, I haven't worked in the UK yet, but at least I know the regulations and I know my project would work on this way.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And then I include a Eurofund analysis,
yeah.
which I came in Lynch thing, case studies, and
Ah,
also an analysis of a case study.
oh, that's brilliant. I think that's really, really an important point as well. It's not just putting the images of the projects but actually dissecting them and showing how and what you have learned from them by doing
Mm-hmm.
like little sketches like you've done there. That's a really important point in analyzing the precedents, how they call them in the matrix. And I think it needs to be done for lots of aspects of the project, including functional aspects like you have done here, but also like technical aspects of the project and that sort of thing. Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
brilliant.
they're important, and especially because well, they were the base, practically the base of the project. And yeah, I think study cases are important, and especially if you really analyze them. Uh, in this case, I had to reproduce the sketches I already had because they were in Spanish, so I had to redo them. And because for them, well, it is important to show the original ones. You will see them more later, but they needed to understand as well.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah.
So don't
And
hesitate to reproduce the sketches.
yeah, absolutely. And it's all that process that happens in your mind. You don't necessarily keep all of those sketches. So it's absolutely fine to reproduce them because that's the process you went through and you need to show that to them.
Exactly, yeah. Then I'm showing the surveys. That was part of my research,
Well,
and
were these surveys that you've done in the area where your project is located?
exactly, yeah, with the people, with the possible users,
Oh, that's brilliant.
there.
That covers like occupants' needs. And that's a really great example of something that you wouldn't traditionally like include in a portfolio that you present when you're applying for a job.
Yeah.
But that is the kind of elements of your work that are extremely useful for the ARB prescribed exams because they really cover important criteria.
Yes, it is the soul of your project in the end.
Sorry?
It's the soul. It's the soul of your project. It is the
Yeah.
structure of your project. It's
Yeah.
like the real where everything is coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh,
And then I include an analysis of the users and their needs,
mm-hmm.
analysis of the zones and circulations.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, I had to reproduce those
Yeah.
schemes because
The
they were
bubble.
in Spanish and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I did that as well. It's amazing how the experience of studying architecture is so universal and like wherever you studied chances are that you have studied very very similar things.
Yeah, something important to mention is the first portfolio I submitted. It was beautiful. I mean, in terms of like graphically, it was beautiful. And I remember when I showed that to my tutor, he told me, "Well, yeah, it is quite nice, but you need to show things, like drawn by hand, your real, the real struggle." And that's how I ended up
Yeah,
doing those things. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
they don't
absolutely.
look. I mean, they don't look like something you will put in a presentation, in a conference,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
they are like the real meaning
yeah,
of
no,
the work.
yeah, absolutely, yes.
And yes, that's the analysis of the areas. This is part of the brief.
Oh, beautiful, yeah. Oh, that's really well detailed.
This is the analysis of the areas in circulations, and same thing here. There are the regionals because I didn't want it to reproduce them. They were like that was already a lot, so I said no, I'm just gonna put it like that. It
Yes,
was okay for them.
yeah,
And those are the original drawings, and I called it development of the design or
yeah.
design development, whatever you want to call. So those are the original sketches I
Oh, beautiful.
produced.
You look at ventilation and how the volumes are put together, and it's really important to have those little notes because they show that you are thinking about this and you're not just drawing. This is your way of thinking about the project.
Yes, yes, exactly. And same thing here. This is the layout.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's very nice.
Those are the Legos I used. Those are 3D Legos, but I used them to create the final
Yeah.
appearance of the building.
Oh, it's amazing.
And then I'm showing the design.
Yeah. Those are also important. The finished documents are also important to show that you can actually produce a plan and that you understand how to put that sort of thing together as well.
Exactly, yes. They
Uh,
are they are the original ones because I didn't have it was a long time ago, so I didn't have the digital drawings anymore.
yeah.
But that's why they look a little bit, like the quality is not great. But for them, it was enough.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't really matter. It's not like a competition entry, it's
Exactly, yeah.
oh, that's
And
really good.
some 3Ds that I used for the presentation of this project. They are very old.
Yeah, yeah, but that shows, the context. It shows that it's, a bit of green and the park that you have designed as well.
Exactly. And here I talk about the sustainability and materials, ventilation. I remember the first time in my first attempt, they told me that I didn't consider ventilation in any of my projects. So this time around, every project was like very well, like I described very well what kind of ventilation I used and everything. So ventilation and compost. So same thing. I'm
Oh,
showing some images and um, systems I used,
Yeah.
some schemes, how ventilation works.
Oh,
In
good.
Mexico, usually we always use, well, depending on where you are, but we use natural ventilation.
Yeah.
This is the impact of the building in the context. I call it here in the existing community, but it is basically a context analysis.
Yes. Ah, it's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I talk about the structure I used because this was a hanging this was a hanging structure in terms, like it works a little bit opposite from compared to to the normal or the common structure everybody uses.
Yeah.
So I had to in this part I had to research a little bit more in terms of what to use to make it work. And I worked with engineers by the time, so they helped me to clear all my doubts
Yeah. Yeah.
and to get the structural drawings.
Yeah.
Same thing, structure. Those are basically M&E drawings,
Oh, yeah.
very general.
Yeah. 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 But it shows it. Oh, that's quite complicated, actually.
Well, this is, I don't know why in Mexico we do this. Well, I'm not sure if every school does it, but in my school we always do those schemes. They were very important.
And that's for sorry, that was for
I think that's drainage. Yeah.
drainage. Yes, exactly. Oh, that's no, that's nothing like we've done in Morocco. We don't do that. We do quite a lot about the structure. Really need to think it through. And we had a module where we actually needed to do the structural calculations. But no, services, I don't think I've ever done that in school.
Yeah, for some
Level of
reason
complexity.
there in Mexico in my university they were very important. Same thing with electricity and that
Ah,
kind of things.
yeah. Oh, it's great.
And well, those are the background documents I used. Basically, they were um, uh, slides of other subjects, for example, history, and I just included the PowerPoint presentation, and just to try to cover a little bit of
Yes,
history, art, and that kind of things.
yes, yes. That's really important.
So this is what I studied to in order to be able to produce my thesis. This is how I justify.
Mhm.
This is how I justified all this information here.
Yeah.
Same in history of art. They were just PDF presentations,
Uh-huh.
and I explain a little bit here why I used this to create my thesis. Same thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna tell you something about this. When in my first attempt, I remember when I talked to a student, she told me that I could, submit this with no issues. But the day of my interview, they told me that this is not enough. So we need to be careful, like while sharing PDF, PowerPoint presentations because they're not enough. You need to go a little bit deeper.
Right. So what did you do to go a little bit deeper the second time around?
Well, this happened to me the second time around.
Oh,
The
right.
first time, the first attempt I didn't show this. The second attempt I showed this, and while in the interview they told me that that was not enough, so they decided me to assess with many history and art questions, and basically my interview was about that, but we can talk about that later. But we
Okay.
need to be careful. Yes, if we're gonna show PowerPoint presentations, we need to go a little bit deeper,
Right.
more in detail.
Okay. Yes.
And hand drawings, sketches.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not only architecture, you can show as well other things,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
3D art, other techniques.
Yeah.
physical models.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Did you keep your physical models? How did you manage to
I
get these
didn't
photos?
keep them as such, but I did took picture. I did take pictures of them, and I kept the pictures because for me they were very important.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's also because like university is something will remind in your heart like that. I really love keeping pictures.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really good.
And some concept boards as well.
Right, right. And
And I
that
think
was
that's it.
of different
Yeah.
projects. It wasn't related to the thesis. It was just things that you
Yeah,
used in school. Hmm.
yeah, I didn't show the one related to thesis because I didn't have it anymore.
Yes.
And I had two options. I could, like, or you reproduce them,
Hmm.
or just keep going and do something else. So I just decided to include what I already have because there's a lot of work, so
Ooh,
you can't
yes.
waste your time. So
Yes.
I just decided to show what I already had, but I think I explained here that I included this, but I did the same thing in my thesis and nobody said anything about it. So I
Good.
presume it was okay. And basically that's it.
Brilliant. Oh, that looks really good. Thank you so much for sharing this.
Oh, thanks to you.
So you alluded a little bit about your interview experience. Uh, Tell us more about that.
Yeah, when I got there, I wasn't sure I was going to sit the examination because the first time around they were like, oh, you are not going to sit the examination because you are, yeah, they told me like a lot of things, no.
Yeah.
But that time I just got there, I sat, and they were like, okay, we already reviewed your portfolio. It is quite complete, but we only have one question. And they started talking about, those PowerPoint presentations. And they tell me, why did you include just PowerPoint presentations to cover the history and art things? And I was like, oh my God.
Oh
Because
no.
I really thought it was enough. And they were like, okay, so don't worry, we are going to ask you some questions so we can cover some criteria you are missing. And I was like, oh my God, no, I'm very bad. I mean, I've never been into history and art. I mean, I love art, of course, but
Yeah.
I'm not an expert and I don't keep dates, I don't keep names and movements and that kind of thing. So I was like, oh my God, it can't be possible. So yeah, in the end, it was 1 hour of history and art questions,
Oh God.
and well, I managed to answer pretty much all of them. Some of them were like, oh my God, I don't know. I was very honest, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. For others, I used my Mexican background information and it
Yeah.
was okay.
Yeah.
And but basically it was all about history and art.
Wow. So they ask you about particular movements of
Yes.
architecture?
Yes, they
Oh,
were like, I don't remember exactly the question, but they were like, what do you think about cubism? And can you mention three exponents? And can you mention three important dates? And things like that. I were like, oh my God, no,
no.
I was so nervous. Yeah, it was quite tough. To be honest, the interview was tough.
Yeah. 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 I
Because
think
it's
it's
not
also
only, yeah.
very nerve-wracking that when you are there in front of a jury and they're assessing, uh, assessing your work. So already it's very nerve-wracking, and to be on top of that, on the top of your game, and remember all these dates. I don't know how would have done it.
Yeah, that was crazy. They started to ask me about Gaudi.
Yes.
And I remember they were like, "Can you mention five buildings?" And I was like, "Oh my God!" I mean, I knew the basic ones, but I was like, "Oh my God, I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna make it." I was so stressed
Yes.
that I finished the interview, and they don't tell you anything. They won't tell you, "Oh, great, you will pass." They don't say anything. So I remember I was like, "Okay, I may fail."
Oh no.
But I'm happy I did it. I mean, I was so satisfied. I was so satisfied. I mean, I really learned a lot from the process. So I was like, okay, if I fail, it's okay. I mean, I still have the one and only last try because you can sit this exam just 3 times in your life.
Yeah.
So it was yeah, it was like that. But no, thankfully I passed, and
Oh, very
yeah,
well
it
done.
was all about history and art. It was
Yeah.
it was weird, to be honest.
Yeah. Gosh, wow. Yeah, no, that's well, honestly, it really is a big achievement because going through all that material and I've seen from your blog that you've done so much reading to understand all the procedures and all the regulations, and then yeah, to be able to produce that work and sit the exam and to pass, that's a really big achievement. So congratulations.
Oh, thanks so much.
You mentioned a few times you referred to a tutor. I wonder if you can tell us a bit more about your tutor and how he helped you to satisfy the criteria.
Yes, he was the first person in showing or sharing a real portfolio. And I consider that extremely important. I saw him just twice, to be honest. The first time was to show him what I submitted the first time, the first attempt, and he gave me his advice, and like he was trying to guide me a little bit of how to complete the examination or how to recreate things, and he showed me this portfolio. It was just academic work because we can't, unfortunately we can't share a professional work, and it was enough for me to see how to present the portfolio, that it wasn't about make it look beautiful. No, it's not that. That's not the point. It's make it look complete and show everything. So that was, I think that was a good thing. I really recommend having someone who
Mm,
can guide you and who can give you some advice. And also he gave me some, I think he was the one who suggested to print 3 copies of the support material, because that gives more time for every examiner to go through your portfolio and other things. I mean, I don't remember exactly like how it was,
mm,
because it was just twice. I didn't see him much, but it was good value. I mean, it was worth it. The last time I saw him, it was just to present what you saw. I mean,
mm,
the full support material, including the professional work. The professional work is way bigger than the academic, so he went through everything, and he gave me advice and things he will change, but also he told me that he can't make me change things, because in the end it was my submission.
mm,
So, and also something I learned from him is like, is that asking for help can cover I think the last 3 criteria or something like that. And yes, one of the criteria is related to find information from other professionals.
mm.
That's something I didn't know.
Yeah, that collaborative aspect of the job. Yeah,
Yes, I think so. Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, it was a good thing. I think it can be very helpful.
Oh my God. I mean, I can't tell you how much getting somebody else's opinion on your work helped me. I have a really good friend and colleague who went through my work every other week. She will sit with me and look at it and tell me if I put my point across or not. And that was so invaluable, getting that second opinion, because you're so much inside your work sometimes that you don't realize if what you have in your head is actually on the page. And
Exactly.
it's really important to get support, and well done for reaching out. Like I said, I think that's one of your qualities, is that
No,
you,
thanks so
every time you
much.
get stuck, you just reach out for help, and that's brilliant. I think that's a great quality for a professional.
Thanks so much.
So are there any other tips or like a piece of advice that you'd like to share with potential candidates?
The first advice I will say, I will share, is to inform, to get informed about the examination in a proper way. Don't watch just those 3 or 6 videos they have on the website, because no, that's not what the examination is about. It goes further than that. And also, something I found quite important is like the ARV team. are very open. If you send emails, they will reply. If you have questions, they will reply.
Mm,
So don't hesitate to reach them. And what else? If if you have the opportunity to work in the UK,
mm,
I think I will wait until I get experience in the UK to sit the examination because it makes things way easier.
mm. Oh yeah, you understand so much more. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that's basically that's what I will advise.
Oh wow, thank you so much for you know, for sharing with us your experience and so much wisdom about the exam. So what's next for you, Tanya? I believe you have exciting plans for 2021.
Yes, I'm starting my part two because I need to cover a couple of credits in Oxford Brookes. So I'm gonna do it in a remote way. It is an office-based program, and it's in partnership with the RBA. I'm very excited to start this because my plan is to get registered and after try to register here in France as well, so
Yeah.
I can practice on my we say here in France practicing on my own name, like
Yes.
have my own practice then in the
Yeah.
future. So those are my plans. My plans are to finish the part two. It's my
Right. Wow. I'm sure you'll do brilliantly. And thank you so
thanks so
much
much.
for your time and sharing your brilliant experience and work with us and being so open and candid about the whole experience. I wish you the very best of luck. And hopefully, we will get to meet soon in person in the UK or in Paris.
Yeah, hopefully it happens. Everything gets better. And thanks so much. And congratulations as well to you because you have gone through this process as well and successfully achieved the prescribed. So that's a big thing. And thanks so much for the invite as well.
Thank you.